Hi everyone, my name's Dave Belcher. I'm a technical director and joint founder of Forsaken Studios. Now, alongside my technical role, I'm also quite heavily involved in design aspects of Embers of Caerus. Now, just over a week ago, I made a promise to the community that if we managed to hit 200 odd likes on our shiny new Facebook page, then we would release a new feature blog. Now, we figured it's been quite a while since we released a feature, so I thought we'd go a little bit further and do something a bit special. So here you have it. Welcome to our first ever developer video blog. Now, just a quick update on the team. Things are going really well. We're very happy with our progress. Work's been going on Aldnerek. That's coming along very nicely. Starting to come together. We're starting to put together some of the starter towns now. And on the kind of the pure code side, we've been working on the architecture of our server. We've got some very nice ideas that we're working on, which should hopefully alleviate some of the potential latency issues that can occur in a single shard MMORPG. But basically, you can rest assured that the team is just as passionate, as driven as it's always been. We're all so keen to kind of get a prototype banged out, to secure the funding we need to go full time, and basically make the big final push to get this game released. But speaking of funding, a few guys in the community, quite a lot of people in the community in fact, have mentioned Kickstarter and suggested that maybe that would be a good option for us. And after a lot of discussion with the team, we finally came to the decision that yes, actually this probably would be the best way to go, at least in the short term. I mean, making an MMORPG is a very expensive affair, so we're under no illusion that we'll get all the funding we need to cover us for the entire development of the game, but we should certainly be able to get enough to keep us on track, to keep us working on the project and take us through to the prototype stage, which is what we'll need to take to the table when we go to secure full funding. So that should be coming out within the next few weeks. We're aiming to put that together. And there is a risk with Kickstarter projects that if you ask for a sum and you don't achieve that sum, you actually get nothing. So rather than being greedy, because we're not a greedy bunch, the main aim for us is making the game, everything else is secondary. So rather than being greedy, we're going to ask for the very minimum of what we need, basically just enough to ensure we have the funding required to take us through to the prototype stage. Hopefully though, the Kickstarter project will do extremely well, because every dollar over and above what we ask for, it directly improves the chances of success for this game. I mean, not just as far as taking the pressure off and making sure we can cover all the licensing costs and all the running costs, and not just because it will allow us to take on some of the core members of the team full time finally, which will mean that will accelerate development, but also if we have a roaring success with our Kickstarter campaign, that's a definite demonstration of how much the gaming community now not only wants but needs a game like the one we're making. Because at present it's a risky venture. It's not a World of Warcraft clone. It's not something that is going to be easy to sell necessarily, but we feel that it's something that really needs to be made. I mean, we need to have this game in our lives, something that for us to play that has all these features. And I know if you're watching this video, you probably feel the same way. So through a Kickstarter project, every dollar going on to the project, it helps us develop the game, but it also shows to any potential investors that yes, this is a viable project and this is something the community wants. So anyway, going on, best get to the meat of this. So the system, the feature that I'm going to give to you today, is one that's it's come up in discussion on the forum recently, and it's to do with siege warfare. Now, I've got to preface this with the usual disclaimer. This is a very early high-level design, so as such, it's subject to change. It'll go through many rounds of balancing before it actually gets released. And there is always the risk that it might not even make it into the final game. It's quite a low risk because we feel this is one of our key killer features, and it affects so much of the way that the siege mechanics work, that it really needs to be in there. But just to get that disclaimer out of the way, just in case, just to cover my own backside. So, Siege warfare. A lot of the games have done it, and done it really well. I mean, I personally loved the siege mechanics of Dark Age of Camelot. Some of the most fun I've ever had is in sieges with Dark Age of Camelot pre-New Frontiers. And a lot of people loved games like Shadowbane, had lots of like town battles. Age of Conan has siege warfare, and in a way Eve does as well. You can lay siege to space stations. And everyone has their own views on who did it right and who did it the best way and what was the best features. But the one thing I think we can all agree on is that losing all of your assets to a 4 AM raid really, really sucks. So, I mean, a few of the other games, they do have ways to counter this. I mean, EVE Online has its hardened space stations, so essentially when you get attacked, the station goes into hardened mode, and then as defenders you'll know exactly when it comes out of hardened mode, which means it gives you an opportunity to turn up and defend that station. And Age of Conan, I believe, had windows of opportunity such that you could specify at what time of day that your fortress or whatever was vulnerable to attack. So again, this is allowing the defenders to basically determine or to know when the fight is going to be and defend. And these mechanics, they're good, but they don't really fit into the freedom that we want to allow in our game, such that they very heavily favour the defenders. So I mean, we have to come up with something different, something new, and the basis of the system we've come up with are siege camps. So the short version of the siege camp is their siege camps are built by the attackers. They're required in order to build your engines of war. There's siege engines that you'll need to actually carry out the siege. They take time to build, both the camp and the siege engines themselves, and those siege camps are themselves vulnerable to attack. So it essentially gives the defenders, if they're vigilant, the opportunity to proactively defend their territory. So I think the best way for me to describe the system is through a scenario. So I'm gonna talk through the planning and preparation and run into and then siege, and we'll say the Ordo Castellum Carnifex is one of the guilds in our community. They're a heavily territorial PvP guild. And they're going to go off and they're going to lay siege on the assets of the Kingdom of Wessex, another guild within our community, or another association with our community. So before they even start to their attack, they need to do a lot of planning, and that's phase one of the siege. They essentially need to figure out where they want to attack, if Wessex have multiple targets. To go determine if they want to do a full frontal attack, when they want to be a bit sneaky, maybe do a few diversions to draw the forces away, because you've got to remember that our world's pretty big, so if you can draw your opposition's forces to the far end of their kingdom and then sneak in and attack where their forces aren't, that's going to stand you in good stead. So for the purpose of this scenario, let's say that the Ordo Castellum, they're just going to sneak in and try and do, in essence, what will be a 4 AM raid, but we'll show how the mechanics prevent that happening. So they've planned their attack, they've sent in their scouts, they've worked out which is the weakest point of the Wessex's defences, they've worked out what patrols they have out, and they've decided where they're going to place their siege camp when they get there. So the phase 2 is preparation. So you're going to need a lot of supplies. Logistics is a big thing in our game, and this also kind of counters the siege guild thing. Not siege guild, sorry, the Zerg guild, where you essentially have hundreds and hundreds of players just banding together and trouncing people. And there's a certain degree of logistics involved in that, and things like food and drink. So while you may be able to hunt and forage in the opposition's lands, it makes sense that you'll need to carry enough food for the journey. Again, large world, it's going to take you a while to get there, especially when you're dragging all your siege equipment, or your siege camp and supplies there as well in carts and whatnot. Also, when you're there and carrying out the siege, maybe that siege is going to be drawn out over a week or more, and you'll need to make sure you have enough supplies so you can feed all your players during that time. And then also you'll need siege camp equipment, and this hasn't been pinned down yet, but something along the lines of you'll need to set up the siege camp, so all the tents and things will come as a siege equipment, which should probably fill at least one cart on its own. So that's something you'll need to prepare, and then you'll be able to take along with you to your siege. And then you've got to determine whether or not you want to take all the equipment you'll need to build your siege engines, so all the wood, the ram heads, all the various components of your siege engines. Will you want to carry those with you, or will you want to gather when you get there? So travel light, get in, chop down a few trees to get your wood, and do everything from scratch when you get there. So that's a decision you have to make beforehand. So the next phase is actually getting into enemy territory. Now, bearing in mind that it's going to take you a while to build your siege camp and to build your siege engines, you really want to try and get in without being spotted. Now this is the first point where the defenders get to preempt the defence. So if they're patrolling their lands, if they're keeping an eye out and they see you coming in, and see you coming in force with all your carts and carriages and siege equipment, then that gives them an initial tip-off that something's going to go down, and it's going to go down soon. So this is the first step where they can proactively defend. So let's say that although Castellum have managed to get in and get in unseen, they've found their siege campsite, which is hidden away from sight, not too far away from the target castle. And I say not too far away because once they build their siege engines, they'll have to move that siege equipment across to the battle site. And siege engines, they're slow, they're very slow, so it's a non-trivial thing to shift all that siege equipment across. So they've gone along, they've set up their siege camp, and that siege camp is going to take a bit of time to build. We're talking in the region of 15 to 20 minutes to set up a basic siege camp, and that's with tents and such. And then once you've placed your siege camp, you can start upgrading it if you so wish. So going through various levels of upgrade, which will add in defensive walls, and ultimately you can fortify your position really well should you want to, and should you have the supplies to do so. And it can get to the point with a prolonged drawn-out siege where it's almost fortress against fortress because you've punched so much into fortifying that siege camp. But you've also got to bear in mind that once that siege camp's built up, you might have to take it down again if you win the keep. But more about that later. So you've built your siege camp, and the next stage is building your siege engines. Now this takes a long time. We're talking the region of 12 to 24 hours. Depending what siege equipment you're making. Things like rams, they're going to take less time, depending on the quality of ram you're making. Whereas things like trebuchets, they're going to take a lot longer. And this is for a secondary reason, because ultimately rams, it's easier to get into the keep through the door using a ram. The ram's going to move a bit faster, you can make the ram a bit quicker. But to balance that out, using the ram is a lot more dangerous because you have to get up close and personal. Whereas on the other side, with a trebuchet, you can stand off a distance and you can throw rocks and knock down a wall, which makes it a bit easier to get in. So the wall's going to take a bit longer to come down, but you're not actually putting yourself at risk. Because if you remember that death in our game is going to be painful, so if you can stand off and take them off from range, that's going to be a preferable affair. But then again, your choice of siege weapon, there's more that goes into it. So for example, once you've captured the keep, which I'll go into later, you've got to defend it to make sure nobody's going to come along and take it back off you, and you've got to defend it until you've managed to repair the damage you've done on your way in. So knocking down the wall, that's going to take a lot longer to repair than knocking down the door. So So anyway, so you've got your siege camp, you've set your stuff building, and that whole process is going to take 12 to 24 hours. So if the defenders are being vigilant, they will have spotted you coming in. If they miss that, they can spot your siege camp, and then they'll know that something's going to go down, and they have that window of opportunity where they can counter-attack. Before you even start your siege, they can attack your siege camp. They can try and take you out. So I mean, this gives you a good reason to reinforce your siege camp. So essentially you set up, and let's say he doesn't find your siege camp, you finally roll out your siege equipment, and you lay siege to your opponent. And let's say Ordo managed to knock down the wall. They go in, they clear out all the defenders, they throw up their banner on the wall to show that they've taken control of that keep. That keep then goes into conflicted state, and they need to hold that for a period of time. We're saying for now about 24 hours. So you really want to get it repaired up so that they can't just come and destroy it straight away again. And then once that's all completed, then you're officially recognised as being the new owner of their castle. Siege complete, happy days. So yeah, so there's quite a few steps to go into the siege itself. But from a defender's standpoint, you've got multiple times when you can essentially proactively defend yourself, either by spotting them entering your territory, by spotting the siege camp, by attacking and destroying the siege camp before they manage to build their siege, by destroying or otherwise sabotaging their siege engines during a siege, so they have to go back and build a new one, which is going to take another cycle, giving you more time to repair your defences. So essentially it gives you a way to proactively defend. I mean, if you don't spot the siege camp, you don't spot them coming in, then you may get knocked over at 3 in the morning. But you definitely have those windows of opportunity, and that's what the system's all about. So anyway, I'm sure this system, I gave you a very rough, high-level overview. There is a lot more that goes into it. I'm sure some people love it, some people are going to hate it. And either way, I know it's going to produce quite a lot of discussion on the forum. So I'll be around and I'll try and answer what questions I can. So feel free to discuss it on the forum. I'm sure there'll be a thread thrown up especially for this, and we'll go from there. But I think you'll find that this is a nice ergonomic. Is that a good word? It's a nice way to approach it without putting in hard limits, like saying you can only attack within this certain timescale or whatever. But anyway, I've prattled on it long enough with that feature. I mentioned early that there's more stuff coming soon. So I guess all that's left is to remind you that you should hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit up our Facebook page, like on that, get signed up on our community forum. Start earning that forum gold, the use of which you'll see in the not too distant future, and just keep checking in, because we have quite a lot of cool stuff coming over the next few weeks, next couple of months. Things like we're doing a full overhaul on our community site soon, so we'll be adding a lot more information, a lot more lore about the different continents, making the concept art album a lot easier to access and navigate. Just putting some more cool stuff on there, and also making it look a bit prettier. We've also got an awesome, just a breathtaking song which we're releasing very soon, that's been sung for us by a fantastic singer that I'm sure quite a few of you will be familiar with, but more on that soon. We've also got, let's see what we've got. Oh yes, the much anticipated and often discussed pre-alpha tavern. We are actually working on a phase 1 of that now, so that should be out quite soon. Don't expect anything too fancy, but we do have some cool stuff going into it that I think you'll really enjoy. So yeah, so got all that stuff coming soon. Yeah, keep in touch, and hopefully I'll speak to you all again pretty soon. And have a great weekend.